So welcome everyone to our Center for Leadership Studies Distinguished Speaker Series. I'm delighted to welcome all of you here today. I hope everyone is staying well and staying safe. And thank you for joining our first ever virtual event. This is the third event in our Center for Leadership Studies Distinguished Speaker Series. And I have to say it's a long time coming because we were planning to have our speaker today back in March in person in Dineen Hall. So we weren't able to have that event back in March, and we are so pleased that our speaker remained in communication with us and that he's joining us here today for this wonderful session. So again, thank you everyone for attending. I'd like to acknowledge our wonderful St. Peter's students. Thank you to all our staff and administrators and faculty members for joining us today, as well as the St. Peter's alumni community. It's a pleasure to have all of you with us. We have a truly amazing speaker here today that you will be introduced to in a few moments by Professor Butkus. Just to provide a little bit of context, as I mentioned, this is our third event in our speaker series, and I wanted to let you know that this series helps to bring wonderful leaders in business, the military, law enforcement, sports, healthcare, and other professions to the St. Peter's community to share a little bit about their experiences and lessons learned over their careers in leadership. The Center for Leadership Studies also provides a vehicle for research and thought leadership, and we believe it is very much aligned with our Jesuit mission of developing learners to excel intellectually, serve compassionately, and lead ethically in alignment with this mission. And we're very, very honored and pleased to have our distinguished leader here today. And thank you, Professor Ray Butkus, our founding director of the Center for Leadership Studies, who will be introducing our speaker in one moment. So for all of our students here today, please listen, learn, and take away the leadership lessons, not only from today's talk, but in all of your classes, all of your activities that you're engaged in. You'll be able to take some insight away from today's event and apply it to your life. So again, without further ado, I welcome Professor Ray Butkus, founding director of our Center for Leadership Studies, to introduce our speaker today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean Natus, for that very gracious introduction to our talk today. I want to add my words of welcome to the alumni and staff and faculty, and most especially to the students. We have a tremendous number of my current students and former students, and maybe even some of my future students. So let's do the following. Why doesn't everyone activate your camera? And if you're a student, why don't we give our speaker one of these so he knows exactly who the students are. All right, very good, excellent. Okay. I'd also like to just remind everyone that if you're interested in learning more about the Center for Leadership Studies that Dean Natus referenced, please go to the St. Peter's website, click on Centers and Institutes, and you will see the Center for Leadership Studies. I'm quite proud of that web page. It has all of the prior speakers videoed on available on that website, and so you'll be able to see some of the distinguished speakers that we've had in previous years here, as well as a number of other pieces of information about the Center for Leadership Studies, including a very powerful and excellent piece of research that was done by one of our students last year, one of our leadership fellows, who examined the effect of stress on leadership. You know, when the Distinguished Speaker Series was conceived over 5 years ago, we knew that we wanted to bring to the St. Peter's campus leaders with a background in a variety of fields. And we've done just that with our previous speakers. And today's guest is no exception. While we're not exactly on campus, we are delighted nevertheless to welcome a leader with absolutely impeccable leadership credentials. He is a graduate of Wake Forest University with a BA in communications, where he played football and set receiving and scoring records, including being the all-time leading receiver in ACC history, quite an achievement. After college, he went on to play for the NFL, where he was a player for the Miami Dolphins, the Denver Broncos, and most recently, the Chicago Bears. When he retired from the Bears, he was the second leading tight end for catches, yardage gained, and touchdown in that franchise history. And by the way, it's a long history. I might add that he is surpassed only by Hall of Famer Mike Ditka. His 12-year professional football career also took him to the 2006 Super Bowl. Now, as impressive as his background in football is, he has excelled in several other fields of endeavor. He leads a group of companies, including the Desmond Investment Group and the Insurance People. He has appeared on CBS, on NBC, on ABC, on ESPN, and yes, even Fox, where he is a commentator and a thought leader. He is the author of multiple books, including Before and Beyond the Game and Principles of Winning, 5 Keys to Create a Standard of Excellence. He has also distinguished himself in the area of philanthropy for his work with the Ronald McDonald House, the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center, and the Holiday Heroes. His foundation provides assistance to underserved youth and to cancer patients and recovering cancer patients. He is a widely respected motivational speaker, having addressed audiences at Fortune 500 corporations, civic and not-for-profit organizations, and educational institutions. The common themes that unite all of these activities are an unwavering commitment to excellence, an intimate understanding of teamwork, and the continuous application of the very best qualities of leadership. He is an executive, an author, a philanthropist, an athlete, an educator, a leader, and I've come to know a gentleman. Ladies and gentlemen, let's unmute for just a moment and give our speaker a very warm welcome, Mr. Desmond Clark.
Thank you. Thank you. You want me to take it away?
It's all yours.
All right. Thank you for having me in. I always count these as great opportunities for myself whenever I have the chance to speak to any organization, school, individual, group. I see it as a blessing because I think what I always try to provide and the overall goal of what I'm trying to do is to add value to whoever I'm speaking with or speaking to. And so hopefully today, at the end of this hour, we can all say that this was, at least you gained something of value that you could take with you and help you be even better than you are today. So today I want to come to you, and we heard Mr. Buckus say that I wrote a book called Principles of Winning. And that's what I want to talk to you today about, the principles of winning, and especially in leadership. You know, the thing that we have to do first before we can lead others is be able to lead ourselves. And in these principles, I really feel like these are 5 foundational principles to build upon leadership skills or anything in your life that you're trying to accomplish. I think really starts with these 5 core fundamental principles, and you can build whatever you want to from these 5 principles. But before I get into those 5 principles, I think it's always important to understand where someone is coming from, what perspective they have, and how something was developed, or in my case, these principles were developed over time, because I'm 43 years old right now, and you only see the 43-year-old version of me. But throughout these 43 years, that's where I developed these principles. So I want to go back a little bit, tell you a little bit of my story before we get into the principles. And I want to start when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I remember living on Roselle Avenue. I'm a son of Rena and Paul Clark, and I remember we lived on Roselle Avenue. And back in that time, I thought it was like the most fabulous apartment of all time. We lived in the cul-de-sac, and we had a big park. I mean, and living here in Florida, I mean, we could play football, basketball, baseball, and play in the park and do everything else year round. So it was a bunch of kids in that neighborhood. And I just remember being out in that park playing football, just dreaming, hey, if one day I can be like a Walter Payton, or one day I could be like a Tony Dorsett. Now, you got to remember, when I was like 7 years old, 8 years old, that's when the Chicago Bears were their greatest, in '84 and '85 when they won the Super Bowl. And Walter Payton was my favorite player. And man, I just used to dream one day if I can accomplish. And I know we all have dreams, and they're not all athletic dreams. We have dreams that we could accomplish so many things. And if we just go back to when we were 6 or 7 years old and tap into that for a second, I mean, we just all just 6 or 7, you're just living. You have no thought of nothing else but dreaming big and playing and just going to school. But for me, after having those dreams, when about the age of 7 or 8, had to start dealing with reality. And reality started to look far different from the dreams, because what happened, the first change that I noticed about my situation, my family's situation, was a change in address. We went from this apartment, which I thought was the best apartment in the world. We used to have family over there playing softball games, this and that. And this I think will aptly explain how our household lived. Instead of having a dinner table, we had a pool table in like a 800 square foot apartment. So we had a very, very fun house. But the first thing that changed for us was a change of address. And my dad and my mom split, and they divorced. But once that happened, things just spiraled downhill, and reality became something more of a nightmare. And that change of address, as I keep mentioning, was that first thing, because now we were being kicked out of this apartment, and we had to go from family member to family member to family member to family member homes to find somewhere to stay for a few months, until we finally settled down in this lower income community in Lakeland, Florida, called the Black Bottom. And looking back on it, Black Bottom was a great name for where we were as a family. Because once we got to the Black Bottom and we finally got into this apartment, we didn't have things that we all take for granted these days. I mean, we had lights sometimes. We didn't have a refrigerator. We used to have the little igloo cooler that we all take to picnics and things like that. If we go to the beach, that's what we had for a refrigerator. And me and my brothers would have to go daily to go get ice to put in this cooler, so we would have, a place to put our food and drinks or whatever little that we had. But I just recall in those days, my mom would always tell us, as long as we have us, we have enough. And fast forward a bunch of years, that was true. And I'm gonna come back to that later. But she used to say, as long as we had us, we had enough. And she made sure that we believed in that. But I used to I remember seeing my dad come in and out of the home. And every time he would come in and out of the home, even though he wasn't, living with us anymore, he would take things. He would take the TV. He would take something. And I just remember him leaving out of the house with a couch, a love chair on his back. Now, my dad is not a big man. He's about 5'9", and today he's about 220. But back then, he was about 160, if that. And walking down the street with a couch basically on his back. I remember that like it was yesterday. And as I came to understand what was going on, I came to understand that our family had split and had went into this downward spiral because my father had developed a drug habit. And I had two brothers, at the time, two older brothers. I have a younger brother now, but he's 12 and a half years older, younger than I am. And for a young kid, a young boy, your father and your older brother, those are the two people that you look up to. And so for me, my older brother, understanding the situation that we were in and we were struggling and just trying to survive, he was a teenager at the time, so he turned to the streets. So now I have my dad on drugs, and I got my oldest brother selling drugs. And, these are the people that I'm looking up to provide that example, to be that role model. And to this day, I still look up to my oldest brother, and thank God he made it out of that life and got himself all corrected, never really got in trouble, never really faced any danger that I know of. And all of my brothers are successful now. But I knew at some point I was going to have to make a choice of what I did with my life. But before I got to that point, a few other things happened. Fast forward a couple years, my mom had got into another relationship. The gentleman that she was with became my stepfather eventually, and then he was the father of my little brother also. But it was in September of 1989 when my mom came and set us down and told us she had to tell us something. And at the time, my youngest brother is 2 months old, and then me and my two older brothers. And she said, "Hey, Lester just got arrested for armed robbery." My stepfather had went down to the local motel and robbed the motel, and now he was in jail. He was going to be sentenced to 15 years. And at that time, life wasn't as much of a struggle. We were on Section 8, but we had a refrigerator, we had food, things were okay at that point. Now I couldn't understand why would he go and do that when, everything was good, but good guy doing something bad. And now later on talking about it in life, I guess we were in a hole, and he said he was just trying to get us out of the hole. But another thing that impacted me just a month after that, my mom got off a phone call, very disturbed, and she told us the news that she got on that phone call. And the news that she got on that phone call was, "Hey, your father just got shot." And for me, my reaction wasn't the reaction that you would think of a 12-year-old kid saying, hearing that his father had just been shot, because this was his third time being shot. And for me, my reaction was, he'll be okay, just like he was the prior two times. But the thing that was different this time, if you know anything about guns and a shotgun, when you shoot a shotgun, it ejects pellets that come out in a circumference, and those pellets hit his eyes. And from October 17th, 1989, he hadn't been able to see since that day. So October 17th, 1989, my dad was shot and blinded. Now, the good part is he did not lose his life. The bad part is he also did not lose his drug habit. And through conversations, my dad told me he was in such a deep depression at that time after he got out of the hospital, recovered from the gunshot wounds, so to speak. He said that he tried to smoke so much crack to where it would kill him, because he was trying to kill himself, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't smoke enough where he would kill himself. What he will also do, if you could imagine being blind, trying to hold a crack pipe, put crack on top, put the drugs on top of it, light it and smoke it all at the same time. As a blind person, that could be pretty complicated to do. So anytime I was over my grandmother's house, he would pull me into the back room and he would have me help him light his crack pipe. Now, as a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid, witnessing these type of things, was traumatic for me. But it ended up being traumatic in more of a positive way than negative. Because one time after lighting my dad's crack pipe and just watching him go to wherever drug addicts, crack addicts go in their mind mentally, I came out of that back room and my father had other people in my grandmother's house. And there was one guy who was cooking crack on the stove, and he came over and he propositioned me to sell drugs for him. And he was playing on the fact that he knew that we didn't have a lot. he knew that if he would offer me the things that all the other kids had, that it would be tempting. Because for me, you know, I was the one that was teased in school, being dark skinned, not having the things that other people had, didn't have the nice clothes. We were just getting by. And for me, for him to tempt me with that, it was very appealing. It was very appealing because he said, hey, get yourself some Jordans, get a starter jacket, you know, go help your mom out because I know that she's struggling also. So when I left that home that day and I walked to my home, I had the most conflicted conversation with myself. And it was almost, I know we've seen those cartoons or movies where you have the devil on one shoulder and you have the angel on the other shoulder. It seemed like I was having that conversation for that whole 30-minute walk that I had home. And that devil on this shoulder was just tempting me with the riches, so to speak, of drug dealing, telling me, hey, your brother did it. He's not doing it anymore, but he made it out. He's okay. He got married. He moved off, living a great life now. You know, all the things that the drug dealer was telling me, I could wear nice shoes now. I could go out and get nice clothes now. I don't have to get teased as a kid when I go to school because we don't have much. And, you know, I look kind of dusty when I go to school. Now I could have money in my pocket. Now I could help my mom out, all of those things. But on this side, it was like the angel was speaking to me very, very softly. And the angel was saying just one thing: you don't want to be a disappointment to your mom. And that's it. You don't want to be a disappointment. And for me, once I got home, I had made up my mind who I was going to be in life. And I told my mom once I got in the house that, hey, Mom, I'm going to be successful. And like any good mom, she said, yeah, I know you're going to be successful. But I felt like she didn't understand the intensity of what I was saying. Is when I told her, no, I'm going to be successful. And she agreed. But for me, it was now I made a choice and I wasn't going to have anything but what I said. But for me, being successful was this: graduating high school, going to college, getting a good job, because that's pretty much all I could see for success. So it's funny to me when people make up their mind that, hey, this is what it's going to be, and it's not going to be anything else but what I say it's going to be, how things start to fall in place, how things start to come together. And for me, I opened myself up to be successful, and I think I opened myself up to people to help me be successful. And the most, and I have to talk about my Coach J's, Coach Joyner, Coach Jackson, Coach Joe, and Coach Jones, my high school and middle school football and basketball coaches. Those guys were some of the most influential people in my life because they helped develop this young person who had made up his mind that he wanted to go in the right direction. They molded that guy to be what you see today. And I give those guys a lot of credit. And once I got to high school, I seen where people were going to school or getting college scholarships for playing sports. I had never seen that before, never knew it could happen. And then that's when I became probably one of the more competitive guys that you could ever meet, because I knew that there were a lot of good players out here. And I knew that I had to be better than these guys in order to get my scholarship. So every week I would check the papers to make sure that I was up there in the rankings. And with the tutelage of Coach Joe and Coach Jones in football and basketball, I became all-state in high school in both football and basketball, and was lucky enough to receive a scholarship to Wake Forest University. And once I got to Wake Forest University, man, it was a feeling of gratitude because I had so many good people that helped push me along to get me there. And every time I went out on that field every Saturday, I took a whole community of people with me. I took the people who paid for me to play Little League football when my mom couldn't afford to pay. I took Mrs. Wright, who was my third grade teacher, who I learned at the age of 29, called every one of my teachers after I left her class to make sure that I was going to get the attention that I needed. And I always wondered why my school, throughout third grade all the way through high school, I had great relationships with all my teachers. It wasn't on accident. That was Mrs. Wright. My brothers, my mom, my dad, who finally came to one of my football games. Actually, it was my last high school football game that he came to. If you go on my Twitter page, you'll still see the picture of senior night when I had my mom and my dad for the first time at one of my games together. I took all of that to Wake Forest with me. And that propelled me to be at my best. And I wanted to be at my best every day, every week, every game, every year. And ultimately, I graduated Wake Forest as all-time ACC leading receiver, and also with a communications degree. From there, I went on to play, to be drafted by the Denver Broncos in 1999, went on to play with the Chicago Bears. And on January 21st, of 2007, we played the New Orleans Saints for the NFC Championship game. And we won that game 39-14, I believe it was. And it was just a surreal moment where the snow started coming down in the fourth quarter, where we knew we were going to win that game. I had so many family members up there, and I just recall holding the George Halas NFC Championship trophy with my family and my friends there. And it just dawned on me at that point, man, this is what I dreamed about when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. And now I'm here getting ready to go to the Super Bowl. And once we went to the Super Bowl, ultimately we lost the Super Bowl. But after I was able to reflect on where I had come from and where I've been able to come to, that really, again, gave me such gratitude for what I had been through and all different lessons that I learned through this time. And that was the start of Principles of Winning. Just taking all of the lessons from the coaches, from the community, from people in my life that poured into me, and understanding that was the reason why I was able to accomplish the things that I accomplished. And I'm gonna start with the principles, and I'm gonna start with number one. And number one is, all you have is your name and your word. Coach Joe, who was my high school football coach, I was the quarterback. He put it on me as the leader, which I don't think I was a leader at that point, but when you play quarterback, you're like the de facto leader. He said, get the guys together, get them out, organize the 7-on-7 practices, because the coaches couldn't be out there. I got you, coach. I'll do it. 3 or 4 days went by. I hadn't got the guys out. We hadn't had a practice, and I knew Coach Joe was looking for me. And when he finally caught me, because I was hiding from him for 3 days, I wasn't always 6'2", 255 pounds. I was about 6'2", 180 pounds at the time, and Coach Joe was about 6'2", 280 pounds himself with a mean streak. And let me just say, I'll never, ever, I love the man to death, so I never, ever say that Coach Joe choked me. I'm just going to say Coach Joe applied pressure around my neck and kind of lifted me up where my toes didn't touch the ground. But he didn't choke me, just pressure around my neck, because he did it in love. And he read me the riot act and told me how I was letting the team down, letting him down. But the thing that he told me after my feet touched the ground again, he said, son, all you have is your name and your word. And once you lose that, you've lost everything that you can have in life. Now, I didn't understand that at the time, but later on in life, it became very clear to me what that means. And when you're talking about leadership, as a leader, when somebody looks at you and says your name, Robert Martin, and says your name, Jesse, and says your name, Mark, and says your name, Nicole, there's a connotation that comes with that. Just like when you say Nike, just like when you say Best Buy, just like you say the Ritz-Carlton. When they say your name, there's a meaning to that. And for me, when people say Desmond Clark, I want them to have a positive emotional reaction to my name, because what I've come to find out is not just the name, it's a brand, just like any other name. What's your brand? What do you want your name to stand for? When people say your name, what kind of reaction do you want them to have when they say your name? Because we as people, we look at certain names, products, builders of homes or builders of cars, whatever you want, whatever you want to look at in any category, there's always a name that signifies excellence, that signifies, hey, this is a better product than another name. What do you want your name to be on that list? And it all comes down to how you protect your word. When you say something, do you follow through? Are you consistent? Are you reliable? When you're consistent, when you're reliable, and you follow through, your name just continues to build equity with people. So first of all you have is your name and your word. Be very, very intentional with the interactions that you have with people to make sure that your name is being well represented for what you want your name to stand for at all times. At all times. Number two, the principles of relationships. And I told you I was going to get back to this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean the principles of the relationships. I meant to say the power of relationships. I told you I was going to get back to this. My mom used to tell us when we used to come in the house and we had no lights, barely any food and no money, and she probably didn't know how we were going to get through the next day, let alone the next week. She would always say, as long as we have us, we have enough. And she raised 4 boys practically on her own, and all 4 of us are successful. And I don't believe that that's an accident, because me and my brothers are as close as 4 brothers can be, and we've been spread out throughout the United States. And we rarely ever get together, us 4, but we are as close as we can be. But I think the point that she was trying to instill in us is that if we all come together, we all look out for each other, and we all have the best interest for each other, we have enough here that we can make each other successful. And of course, I'm 8, 9, 10 years old at the time when this is going on. But as I got older, and as I started to reflect on that Super Bowl, I started to reflect on all of these different people. And I started to say all of those people represented that us that my mom was talking about. As long as we have us, we have enough. And then as I started thinking about all of these other people, I started to expand that to, what about all of my other relationships? What about the rest of this world that we can add relationships and gain from and add value to? That needs to become us. That needs to become my part of my us. And if I can make it out of where I made it out of with the us that I started with, what can I possibly accomplish with the us that I can add to that out here in the world? And for me at that point, I became very intentional about making people feel like extended family members. Making people feel like they are extended family members. Making people feel loved, making people feel respected, making people feel heard, making people feel like they are important and that they have value. Because here's the thing, we can do some things individually, but as a collective unit, there's nothing that we cannot accomplish. And I think there's a few keys to developing great relationships. And one of those keys is to not be judgmental, because we come from so many different places, so many different experiences and backgrounds that make up what we see right now. Like I said, in my 43 years, all you see is this. That's why I think it's always important to let you know what led up to these 43 years. And I may have some opinions and I may have some circumstances that you may not agree with or you agree with, but it's always important to not be judgmental, but be curious to why I may have said what I said, or why I think like I think. Because I want to be curious when it comes to other people, to understand. Another point is always be encouraging and always being and always be challenging. I believe that every human innately wants to be at their best, even if they don't know it, even if they will fight you on it. I think every human being wants to be at their best. And I think when we challenge our neighbors, when we challenge our friends, and when we challenge our family to be at their best, while also being encouraging, that's the other piece, while also being encouraging, people want to be around people that brings the best out of them. Developing relationships, the power of relationships. We can get further when we have teammates. And I always think about when I train. When I'm training by myself, it is a struggle. But if I'm training in a group, it is a whole lot better to train with 5 people than it is to train by yourself. I run faster, I jump higher, I do more weights, because that collective unit uplifts everybody. Number 3, having a commitment to excellence. And I love this one right here. Excellence, the word excellence you can only have one connotation for excellence. I've never heard another connotation for excellence beyond having a great standard, meaning something good. That's why I use that term, excellence. And I think if we want to be great leaders, first we have to start with ourselves with that commitment to excellence. And then when we show it and add on those other 2 things, people will follow. And I like to tell a story when I was in high school. So, man, dominant high school team. We were ranked number 1 for most of the season until we got upset in the quarterfinals of the state championships. 6'1" point guard. I'm 6'2" playing the 2 guard. We had 2 6'6" forwards and a 6'11" center. That was our starting lineup in high school. And we were a cocky bunch of little kids, and we would walk into the gym and stare you down because we just knew we were getting ready to kick some butt, because all we had to do is point back at 6'11", and nobody wanted any of Alvin Jones back there, 6'11", who's ducking coming into the gym. But our coach, his dad, Alvin Jones Sr., we would practice so hard every single day. And after one practice, he asked us, "Do you know why we practice so hard?" And me and my little 16, 17-year-old mind, I wanted the answer to that question, because I didn't understand, because we were far more superior than just about anybody we were going to face. And what he told us was this. He said, "We have enough talent here where practice should be harder than the game." Again, we had enough talent where our practices should be harder than the game. And what I come to understand about that is that whatever game that you're in, I don't care if it's taking a test, I don't care if it's doing a presentation, whatever it is, the game is won in the preparation. The game is not won on game day. The game is won in preparation. And for us, we practice so hard. Like I said, we dominated most of the year, because when the lights came on, all we did is just let all of that preparation that we put into the week, into that game, just come out and shine. And I have a saying, you get rewarded in the light for what you do in the dark, good or bad. You get rewarded in the light for what you do in the dark. No one sees, like when you play professional sports, no one sees the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday practice schedule. They only see on Sunday. But that's only one day out of 7 that you're preparing. Have that commitment to excellence. When I got out to the Denver Broncos, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping to number 4 now. Be self-motivated. And that sounds on the surface kind of like a flimsy term. Of course, you're supposed to be self-motivated, right? But I don't think that people understand self-motivation like they should understand self-motivation. Self-motivation is this. When I got to the Denver Broncos in 1999, two-time world champion, they had Shannon Sharpe as the starting tight end. He became a Hall of Famer. Dwayne Carswell and Byron Chamberlain both became not Hall of Famers, but All-Stars, became Pro Bowlers. And those were the three tight ends that I was coming into this team and I was going to play behind. And everything, I was telling myself this, how can I make the team? I never played tight end before, and I'm playing behind Shannon Sharpe, I'm playing behind House, I'm playing behind Byron Chamberlain. These guys just came off of winning 2 Super Bowls. I'm not as strong. I'm not as fast. I'm nothing compared to these guys. But this is everything that I'm saying to myself. The one thing that I could do is catch the ball and run routes, but I'm messing that up also because in my head, I'm looking at them, letting them set my benchmark. And the truth is this, I wasn't as good as them. And I had a scout actually come and tell me that. You're not as good as them, so you need to quit focusing on them. But what he said to me really was the key to unlock my career. He said, I want you to go and ask yourself when you go back to your dorm tonight, how good do you want to be? And he put up this hand like this. He said, how good do you want to be? He say, now, after asking that question, that's the easy question. Everybody wants to be good, right? Now, go ask yourself this question. How good are you now? Here and here. And he says, here's the difference. Everybody wants to be good, but who's willing to put in the work to be good? Who's willing to put in the work to be good? And he said, are you willing to come out here every single day and practice on one single thing that's going to make you a little bit better every day? Every day, just one thing, until you get to the point where you're as good as you want to be. A lot of people want to be good, but everybody is not willing to put in the work to be good. And that's what separates those people who actually do it and those people who always continue to want to do it. The people who are willing to do it. And number 5 is this. You got to have a purpose. And I'm a believer that we get to create our own purposes. We have freedom of choice to create our own purposes. And it just starts with, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? What am I getting up every day for to go and do these repetitive things every day? Why am I doing it? Here's what I believe. I believe that it's easier to fight for something than it is to fight through something. And that purpose, to me, is something that you are giving yourself that you can fight for every single day. Because there's going to be so many things that you got to fight through. You need something to fight for, something that's going to bring you out and give you that strength, give you that motivation, give you that extra oomph when you get up every day. And mine is this. And I have it written on my stationery, my cards. Whenever I send somebody something, they get this. And right here is my purpose statement. And I'll read it to you. And then I explain it. It says, with excellence being the standard, my purpose is to enhance the lives of others through any expertise or resource that I have available to me, with respect to my family, whom are primary, making every effort to transform strangers and associates alike into extended family members. That's why I get up every day. But here's why I do that. I don't believe that I was really destined to be here, to be standing in front of you. The only way I got here was because of a multitude of other people who were real leaders. They didn't do it because they expected any type of reward. They didn't do it because they knew I was going to be a professional athlete. No one could have predicted that when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, when they were trying to help my mom out, when they were trying to keep me off the streets. No one knew that. They just did it because that's what leaders do. Leaders know that it's not about them. Leaders know that it's about trying to get other people to where they're trying to go. And in doing that, the payoff for them will be just that. I got somebody else to the finish line. And that's why my purpose is what it is. Because of those people, I have been able to gain resources and expertise where I can go out and I can help other people. And this is just a bonus one for a principle of winning. Align visions. Align visions. Because as a leader of a small independent insurance firm, a leader of different people, I'm always trying to understand, what are you trying to get accomplished? What are you trying to get accomplished? What are you trying to do it yourself? And then I look at my vision of what I have for my different things that I do in life. And I try to understand, can my vision of what I have help them accomplish their vision? And can their vision also help push my vision? And once we have those aligned visions, now we have something that we can work with. And that's where people can connect on a different level. Forget politics, forget race, forget color, forget male, female, all of that stuff. If we can align visions, then we can move forward. So again, number one, all you have is your name and your word. Number two, the power of relationships. Number three, have a commitment to excellence. Number four, be self-motivated. You can't look at other people to set your bar. You cannot look at other people to set your bar. You are the only person that can bring what you can bring to the table. Nobody else is made like you. Nobody else is you. And you are your only competition. Number five is create a purpose for why you get up and do this every day. So you're getting up fighting for something every day instead of always fighting through something, because Lord knows we fight through stuff every single day. We need something to fight for every single day also. And then six, I just believe is the bonus is not even six, just the bonus is, man, if you could align your vision to someone else's to help pull you up, or you can align somebody else's vision to yours to help pull them up, that's where the greatest gains are gonna come. So Mr. Buckets, I thank you for allowing me this time to speak to your group. Hopefully, like I said at the beginning, my goal is always to bring value. I hope there's been one or two things that you could take away from this and say, hey, that was valuable for me to continue going on, being the best person I could be as a leader and as an individual. Thank you.
Well, Desmond, thank you very much. Without knowing it and without a previous preparation between Mr. Clark and me, he has touched on in his remarks many of the same principles that my leadership students have heard me talk about in my leadership class. And I've never played professional sports, but the power of his message, ladies and gentlemen, is that the applicability goes far beyond professional sports. It certainly goes to many other life pursuits as well. So thank you very much for that. We've got time for a few questions. There's a tremendous amount of food for thought in Mr. Clark's comments. So we've got time for a few questions. Let's see who might have a question here. If you want to do the raise hand function, we can do that. I know some of my leadership students are going to have a question.
We have a hand up, Professor Sukram and then Jesse Resurreccion.
Oh, Jesse, you can go first, no problem.
Appreciate that, Dr. Sukram. First off, I just want to say thank you so much, Mr. Desmond Clark. That was very inspirational. And I relate to your story in many ways regarding like how we found our motivation to do well and how hard we fought from even a younger age. And I just wanted to ask you, how did you reset yourself after failure? And how do you find yourself? Sorry, keep going.
No, No, go ahead. Go ahead. Get finished that asking your question.
And how does commitment override how people just work towards a goal? Because sometimes people work towards a goal and then after that they feel like this is it, they reached that. How do you make sure you keep striving to raise the bar up? And where does that come from?
Yeah, and you touched on another one of my principles, commitments over goals. But I'll start with the first one about being defeated and having to pick yourself up. I look at life like this. We know that life is going to have its ups and downs, right? I think we can all agree on that. And we always celebrate the ups, right? But when the downs come, I think we look at those moments as if we didn't know that life was going to bring us some defeats. And for me, I always say embrace the moment, no matter if it's up or down, because we already know we're going to have ups and downs. So when we have those down moments and we embrace those moments also to understand, okay, what happened here? What did I do wrong? What can I do better? And ask yourself this question, now what? Now you open yourself up to start to progress out of whatever, situation that gave you a defeat, a momentary defeat. And again, look at it as it's a moment. It's only a moment. And I talk a lot about this COVID-19 situation. If we stretch out a measuring tape 85 inches and we say, hey, that's our lifespan. Let's just say we have to go through this COVID-19 situation for 2 years. Let's just say 2 years. That's 2 out of 85. So when we look at it like that, now we can understand that this is not our entire life. But while we're in this moment, we need to do whatever we need to do to make the best out of this moment, because this too shall pass, just like every defeat that we have. So I just say embrace it, embrace those moments and learn from them. And I know we're human. We all go through the pity party sometime, and we don't want bad things to happen, but just understand that they will. And then talking about goals and commitments, it's great to have a goal. Everybody should have goals, but embrace the commitments over the goals, because you may not ever get to your goal and you can't control your goal. I had goals to go to the Pro Bowl. I had goals to catch 70 passes, but I can't control what plays are being called. I can't control what defense are being called, so I'm going to be open on a route. I can't control none of that. So my goals sometimes are out of my control. But what I can control is the commitment to the work I need to do to understand the plays, so I'm always in the right spot to receive whatever it is that's going to get me closer to my goal. So always focus on the commitments, and having the goal is great. Focus on the commitment. And as human beings, goals are just mile markers.
Yeah.
Like you was just saying, once you get to that one goal, then you're asking that question again. Now what? Now what? Because once you get there, we don't stop. I mean, it's just kind of, for me, for people who are very competitive and very want to see how good they can be, it's an ongoing situation. We're never standing still.
Never. I agree with you. I'm also an athlete, and it was when I was 17 that I became committed, because I realized that I was just reaching towards goals, but I wasn't reaching towards the core of the issue. And I also had to do athletics in order to get scholarships, and I had to compete very hard to get where I am here. So it was very inspirational listening to someone who is in the future speaking towards someone who is still in the now, who's still in the matter, trying to get through it. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Stay focused on the commitments.
Yes, sir.
And then you'll hit your goals more times than not.
That's true. Once I did that, it just followed.
How about Professor Skukram going next?
And then Rob Martin has a question. He couldn't raise his digital hand though.
Sure. Thank you, Desmond, for speaking to all of our students. And just really quickly, I mean, inspirational story of adversity and staying committed. I just wanted to bring up one point. Looking at your statistics in the NFL, you know, the 10 plus years that you've played, you have played in 16 games, all 16 and 15, so many times. And that's truly remarkable for a sport as grueling and taxing it is on your body. Can you talk to our students about why was it so important for you to be so available, to show up every day, to be there for your teammates? You know, when you have good days, I'm sure your body was hurting. I'm sure there were difficult times. Can you just touch upon, why did you feel it's so important to be available and show up every game?
Right. So those are just game stats. If you go back and look at the practice stats, I mean, how many practices that you had to fight through things. But we have this saying that availability is your best ability. If you're not available, then nothing else really matters. And we could be talking about mentally, physically, emotionally. You got to be available. And for me, it was one of those things. After I got released from the Denver Broncos, after catching 51 passes and 6 touchdowns, I mean, I'm in my third year. I'm one of the best up and coming tight ends. Tony Gonzalez that year for the most touchdowns by a tight end. I got released the next year. I got cut. And for me, that was whoa. And I never took it for granted after that. I never took it as I've arrived. I'm here. I don't have anything else to prove. I just kept a kind of like a chip on my shoulder. I always had something to prove. And it was more about competing than anything else, because I understood that we are replaceable. And you got to go in and continue to create value for yourself every day, and respect. One of the sayings that I have is, respect is not earned in a day, is earned daily. So you got to be there, you got to show up, and you got to do it on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got time for about one more. So Rob.
How you doing, Mr. Clark? You mentioned in the beginning of your book, the principles of winning, that a lot of people like strive to like kind of put their lives through like the aspect of the hero's journey. Like your eyes, how do you like, with the ups and downs of like life, how do you reevaluate where you are in your own like hero's journey, and like how can like we do that as like students?
Yeah, a mentor of mine, a brother of mine that I work with Mass Mutual, and then he went on to become CEO of Mass Mutual Great Lakes in the Detroit market. He has this thing. He said, when you face adversity and certain tough moments in life, you always got to ask yourself, what would the hero do? And then be the hero. You got to be the hero of your own story. We can't sit around and wait for someone to come and save us. We can't sit around and wait for somebody to throw us, a lifeline. When we're in those moments, we got to remember, this is my movie. This is my cinematic picture that I'm developing every day. Robert, you're the hero in your own movie. And heroes, they get help. Yes, they do. I mean, I told you about the help that I got. I mean, if it wasn't with Superman, I forget who was his butler that always bailed him out of trouble, always gave him words of encouragement. We all need that, but you have to be the hero of your own journey, and you can't forget that. You can't forget whose journey this is yours. So that's how I would think about it when facing those tough moments in life. Heroes get knocked down. Superman has kryptonite. Other heroes have things that, hey, once they face it, it weakens them, but they always bounce back. So just be the hero in your own journey and think about it that way. And I know, Mr. Buckers, you said one more, but Vincenzo was raising his hand, and I caught it, so I wanted to make sure I answer his question also.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I really appreciate this. First and foremost, I want to thank you. I've been waiting for this presentation series probably since last January, and it was one that I really wanted to attend. So it was well worth it, and you really did provide value to everyone here today, in my opinion. But my biggest question to you was, you talked a lot about mentorship, leaders in your life. And can you just expand a little bit more on the importance of those mentors and those leaders that you didn't know at the time were leaders, and the impact they kind of had on your journey? And, in your story, you really possessed much mental toughness. Maybe you didn't even know it at the time, but it seemed like you overcame adversity, on the regular. And can you talk about, what mental toughness, how important mental toughness is in the work of a leadership?
Yeah, I was asked a few days ago on a podcast, how can someone raise themselves out of a really, really tough situation? Is it nature or nurture? And I said it's a little bit of both. I think when it comes to nature, the person has to have something in them that wants to do better, right? If a person doesn't want to do better and don't want to, do the work, there's nothing that you can do until they get ready to do it. But then the nurture part, that's the mentorship. And even if a person wants to do better, but their experiences haven't shown them what better is, what better can look like, a path to better, then that person is stuck. So that's where the mentorship comes in at, where somebody can come in and shine a light on, hey, this is what better looks like. This is a path to better. This is how you can be better, because I've been there. I've done that. I've seen it over and over. I think we only grow as human beings by getting new information introduced to us. And the only way to get new information is to go outside of who we are as an individual. So that mentorship, without that mentorship, and mentorship comes in a lot of different ways. Without that mentorship of the experience to show someone a path, a person is stuck. So I believe, especially from my personal situation, that mentorship, nature and nurture is equally as important, because I can want to do it and I can want to go hard and I can want to, just get me out of here. I'll do anything. But if I don't know how to do, what to do, where to go, it's useless. So that's why the mentorship is important, to provide that experience, to shine a light on the path and give new information that person can chew on and understand and be able to move forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I want to, again, thank Desmond Clark for his wonderful comments. We have a great number of students on this call, most of whom are business majors. And if there are some of you who may be thinking, well, his message is really only applicable if you are an aspiring athlete, I can tell you that his message is equally applicable in business. And when he made the comment, practices should be harder than the game, my mind was drawn back to several years ago. I was leading a sales team, and a sales manager came up to me and said, "Hey boss, there's no way we can win this deal. We're more expensive. They have better technology, and they are better positioned at a higher level with a customer than we are. So there's no way we can win this." And I asked him a simple question: are we doing everything perfectly to prepare for this sale? Because if we are not doing everything perfectly, then we don't have the right to say that we can't win this deal. And until you can look me in the eye and tell me that we're doing everything right in this sales situation, don't tell me we can't win it, because we don't have the privilege of saying we can't win it until we're doing everything excellent. So it is exactly the message that Mr. Clark gave us when he said practices should be harder than the game. I want to ask everybody to unmute, and let's give a huge round of applause to the speaker.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much for joining us, and please join us next semester for another one of our Distinguished Speaker Series. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, Desmond. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.